Okay, so let's take a look at some inequalities and how we would want to properly solve them. In this first case, there's a couple different approaches that one could take. If you are a person who does not like working with fractions, like most people don't, then what I would do is recommend clearing that fraction right away. Why not? The denominators are both the same here of 3. So if I were to multiply everything by 3 over 1, that'll cancel out my denominators here and here. And the end result then of what we get is the 3 times 2/3 x, which will just give us 2x, plus 3 times 10, which is 30, is less than a minus 2x, if you multiply that by the 3, plus 66. Okay. Now it looks like a much friendlier equation that we can just go ahead and continue to solve. So much like linear equations, you solve it the same way. So in this case, we'll add 2x to each side. Okay, and that gives me 4x plus 30 is less than 66. Okay, now I'll subtract 30 from each side, and that gives me 4x less than 36. Divide both sides by 4, and we have our answer then of x is less than 9. Okay. Now, some of you have been asking, well, how do I graph that? Okay, so what you want to do when you graph it is to create a number line. Okay, here's 0, here's 9. We know that because this is just a less than symbol, that I should have open parentheses, and that would go to the left. Okay, if you wanted to write it in interval notation then, we have to think about, well, what's on the left? It's infinity, and any time that we use infinity, we always use a parenthesis. So my interval would be from negative infinity to 9. Okay, so here is our second example. Okay, so example 2. And in this example, we have a compound inequality. So we need to solve it. And you do this the same way, again, that you would any other algebra problem. The only difference here is that there's more than one side, you could say. But I still start by wanting to isolate that variable. So my first step here is I'm going to subtract 3. Okay, subtract 3 all the way around. And that gives me a minus 9 is less than or equal to 3/4 z, which is less than or equal to a minus 3. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear that fraction out. And I'm going to do that by multiplying everything by 4 over 1. If I multiply everything by 4 over 1, I have minus 36 is less than or equal to 3z, which is less than or equal to a minus 12. Okay. And then I go ahead and I just have to divide. So I divide everything by 3. And when I do that, my final answer then is minus 12 is less than or equal to z, which is less than or equal to minus 4. Okay. So now what we have here is, if again you think about a number line, okay, what you have here is an interval between minus 12 and minus 4, and it includes those numbers. So over here, if you have minus 12, 0, and minus 4, it includes those, and because it's including those, I have to have brackets. Okay? So that's when we use brackets. And then if you're asked to write in interval notation, and you've done your graph, it's the same thing as what you've just put on your graph. It will look like minus 12 minus 4. We always want to have the smallest number first. Okay, let's take a look at another example. All right, so here is our example 3. Now with this example, again, we're going to start by trying to isolate our variable here. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by adding 2 to each side. Once I do that, I have negative 4 is less than a minus 2z, which is less than 14. Okay. And now I have to divide. And so I'm going to divide everything by a negative 2. Okay, so one really important note to make is that whenever we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip the direction of the inequality. So if you multiply or divide, change the direction. Okay, so what this means then is that on our left-hand side, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Now, I change the sign. Right here, it has to become greater than. Okay, z, and then greater than a negative 7. Okay, so now I'm saying that negative 2 is bigger than z, which is bigger than negative 7. If that is hard for you to think about, you can also rewrite this another way. So, or we could say that negative 7 is less than z. Oops, I should make that white. Less than z, okay, which is less than a negative 2. Okay, so you can see when you have it this way that your smallest number is still on the left and your largest number is on the right, which is usually, I think, for most people easier to comprehend. And that way, if you graph that out, you can kind of see what you've got to work with. So obviously they're both negative. And because it's just a less than or greater than symbol, our parentheses in this case are open on both ends. So it's here and here. And then if I wanted to write it in interval notation, minus 7, minus 2. Okay, so I hope that helps some with inequalities. Please feel free to ask if you'd like additional videos made on inequalities.